We'll turn now to the issue of how we learn racial identities. When and how does this occur, and how old are we when we start to identify with one race or another? According to some child development experts, racial identity doesn't fully emerge until adolescence. But some research shows that children as young as 3, no matter what their racial background, recognize skin color differences and hold a wide array of racial attitudes, assumptions, and behaviors. So this begs the question of what it means to be one race or the other. And in general, the race of the majority status becomes invisible because everyone takes that for granted as the norm. So what does it mean to be white, and how do you define your own race? If you're part of the dominant race, you may not even think about race as being an identifier. Being white means that you must learn to handle privilege and behaviors associated with your whiteness. Few sociologists have attempted to explain how white children come to understand and see themselves as white people, even though whiteness, like any other racial identity, must be learned, developed, and performed. Learning to be white is less about defining one's race as it is about learning how to handle privilege and behaviors associated with whiteness in society. For children of color, on the other hand, racial socialization occurs within a different and much more complex social environment. A child that's non-white may have to live simultaneously in 2 different worlds: their ethno-racial community, which values them, and the mainstream, that is white, society, which may not. Hence, they're likely to be exposed to 3 different types of socialization experiences while growing up, that which include information about the mainstream culture, that which focuses on the minority status in society, and that which focuses on the history and cultural heritage of their ethno-racial group. So, a big part of the socialization process for ethnic minorities is that they must learn how to be part of their ethno-racial community. They must also learn their roles in mainstream society. And the reality is that often African American or Hispanic parents feel they must prepare their child for prejudice and hatred in a society that's set up to exclude them in order to keep their child physically or emotionally safe. I agree with Newman in that we're preoccupied with sexuality in this society. It's seemingly everywhere, in our magazines, our novels, our television shows, our movies, our music, our video games, our text messages, our advertisements, our social network sites, and our politics. The impact of all this sexual imagery is not trivial. A study of American teens found that frequent exposure to sexually oriented television shows like soap operas and music videos is associated with casual attitude towards sex, higher expectations about the prevalence of sexual activity, and sometimes greater levels of actual sexual experience. The message about sexuality is pervasive, and children are constantly bombarded with messages from the media. And the vast majority of these messages are heteronormative. Schools are also a strong force in the socialization, and youth emulate and reinforce many mainstream messages at school and with peers. So children are learning not only what it means to be feminine or masculine, but homosexual or heterosexual. And society hands us scripts in our relationships as well. There's a common heteronormative script of dating, then serious relationship, then engagement, then marriage, and raising a family. But if one does not buy into the heteronormative script, then what script is there? For the lesbian and gay young adult, how do they create a relationship? And how does society diminish those scripts from being written and retold?